I meant to be in this too. There we go.
Hi there.
Hello. Thanks for doing this. I'm Phil Helgerson. I'm from Second Congregational Church in Newcastle.
Nice to meet you, Phil. Happy to be here.
Thank you. This is my first time to connect with you all. I'm the incoming treasurer. So I guess that's if I get elected.
Hello.
Hello. It seems like we just had some Zoom setting difficulties we had to hammer out, but we've got them under control now.
You're all set.
So-
Okay. All right. So you guys are okay without me?
Yep, we're okay. I was just reaching out because it was 3 or 4 after, and I was still waiting to join the meeting, and I wasn't sure what everybody else was experiencing.
Oh, okay. It
Did
confused
you all-
me now that I looked at the email. You had to actually make a selection to learn more. And then that opened up and told you the Zoom information.
Great.
So there's an extra step.
Has everybody else been in here since 12, or did you just get let in?
It just came on. Brad and
Okay.
Linda Ryder from Hammond Street.
Okay.
I'm pretty new.
Hey,
We just got on.
Oh,
We're
good.
Ken and Don from Union Congregational Church down in York Beach.
Wonderful. I'm so excited. Well, we had to do it light speed, and most people will get to look at the recording, which is great. But thank you, Jerrod, and I wish I could come, but I have to go to this appointment. So I'll talk to you all later. Have a great meeting. Jerrod's going to make it so easy. You don't want to lose his number. Bye, guys.
Hi, good to
Bye.
see you.
Good to see you too. Bye, guys.
So what I'll do, I'll open with, I think maybe we've got a bunch of information. We can obviously target this a little better if we get a sense of what you were all coming here for. Obviously, we know in general because of the nature of the presentation, but if there's anything specific you want to address, that would be good to learn up front. And while I'm doing that, I don't know if Jessica already has her slides up on her computer or not, but it'll give her a chance to set up, and then we can do her introduction as well afterwards. So does anybody have anything in particular? If you want to, if you know how to raise your hand, that might be helpful, so we're not all talking over each other, or we could just try to open it up and see how it goes. So Paul, you're still muted, Paul. Down in the left-hand corner, you've got to hit unmute. There you go. You're good now.
Thank you. I just checked it 30 seconds ago and I was unmuted. So my name is Paul Teenan. I'm the treasurer of the Sheepscott Community Church. Sheepscott Village is a small village within the town of Newcastle. And so hello to my other treasurer friend. We're just getting acquainted by Zoom today. And I just got a message very recently this morning about this workshop. So it was of interest enough for me to join you. So I'm looking forward to the information and see whether it's got any possibilities for us as we're looking forward.
Okay. A good actual opening question that might help us understand the demographics a little bit better. Has anyone here applied for any PPP loans or any other disaster grants since the pandemic started? If you have, raise your hand. So it looks like two people have, Harper and Philip. Okay. So everybody else hasn't. Okay. And out of those people who didn't apply, do you have either regular supply preaching or ministers or staff on payroll? And we'll get into why that's important in a minute. But if you do, could you raise your hand? Okay, so a good chunk of you. Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is relevant. Is there anybody, does anybody else have anything that they specifically came here that they wanted to talk about if they looked at this before and were confused about part of it? If not, we'll just go into a general. Ken?
Yeah, down at Union, we've been doing outside services during the summer. And with this grant, can we purchase outdoor heaters or any supplies to do worship service?
So
Equipment for
yeah.
live streaming? That seems to be our problem. We're just using a laptop.
So if you were you one of the people who raised your hands that you had staff?
Yes.
Okay, so indirectly, and we'll get into that after we've gone over some of the basics because it's a little bit of a confusing conversation at first about how it works. But the answer is indirectly, yes, maybe. And then Robert had something as well.
Yeah, very quickly. I'm ordained in the Oxford Union Association, and at the Bethel Church, the World Affairs Committee has framed a proposal, a feasibility study with respect to a teen homeless and runaway youth intervention.
Okay.
And I'm just received the announcement from the conference. Thank you, Nita. And so I just wonder whether how wide the purview of this RFA or whatever you want to call it is. Thank you.
And were you one of the folks that raised your hand that you had ministerial staff as well?
Well, yes, I've been associate pastor in the Bethel Church. I'm no longer that, but Tim Laconey is the settled pastor in the Bethel Church.
Okay. So again, we'll get into how the funding ends up working after we've covered some basics with Jessica that I think will help understand kind of how all this works together. So I know Jessica through some local networking groups. She's a personal banker with Machais, and I've seen her do some presentations on this particular stuff as well as help some other folks. I'm at the First Congregational Church in Brewer, and then work in Bangor as well in a tax firm that I run. And so that's my background, and I've know Lynette because small churches often have trouble with compliance issues and understanding them, and some of her churches have just need a little bit of information. I've been able to kind of point them on the right track, and we thought that information would be more broadly useful. And I brought in Jessica because she's got experience processing these. I understand how they work, and I can answer questions about forgiveness, but for a while, this was all Jessica was doing all day, every day, if I remember correctly. So she's got a large number of, or a large bit of practical experience with what goes into it. And I know she's available for more detailed conversations offline. And also, I know that if you, also these are broadly available through any number of financial institutions as well if you have a relationship or there isn't a Machias Savings Bank in the area. So at this point, I will turn it over to Jessica, and she's got a great PowerPoint slide presentation for you. And if you get confused and you want to type a question into the chat box, then we can address it basically after she gets through a section or we get towards the end.
All right. Thank you, Jerrod. Welcome all. It's nice to see all of your faces virtually. Like Jerrod mentioned, I am a commercial lender with Machias Savings Bank. I'm located in the Bangor Brewer region, but I've probably covered your town at some point because I've covered the whole state in different capacities of at the bank. So happy to be here and happy to help. So I know that a couple of you have already gone through the first round of PPP funding. It was a wild, wild ride, I have to say. And we've started the forgiveness process. So out of the two of you that had the first round, did you apply for forgiveness yet? You have. Okay, good. Did you hear back yet? Whether
Yes,
it
we
was
have
forgiven?
heard back the end of December, actually. And we did get complete forgiveness for the loan, which was been great for us.
That's wonderful to hear. That's wonderful to hear. And Philip, I think that you were the other one, correct? Yep, I think so. Oh, he's on.
I think
mute.
I
It's
saw
okay.
Renita shaking her head as well. I don't know if
Renita
they're
too.
in the same
Okay.
congregation or different congregation.
Yes, well, we were successful in getting our loan forgiven.
Good.
It was very helpful for us because of revenue declines.
Of course. So I welcome both of you, all three of you. If you'd like to share your experiences as we kind of go through this, please speak up because I think that your experience will help others as well. But the first round of funding is very different from the second round. The first round of funding, it was crazy. We were just handing out money as quickly as we could to everybody that was in need. So there was no really restrictions on the first round of funding. So that goes into this round as well. So I'm going to share my screen, if you will. And
Do you have the ability to do that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
I think you should be able to see it right now. Is that correct? Everybody good? Everybody can see it? All right. So I just went to our website and right here on the homepage is the Paycheck Protection Program. So if I click on that, this is going to give me all of the information about the second round of funding. So there's two different borrowers this time around. There's your first time borrower that didn't apply for the first round. And then there's your second time borrower that applied for the first and the second round. So there are different requirements for each. So we have provided checklists and also walkthrough instructions and applications down here at the bottom. And we are keeping them very separate. So I'm just going to go through, it sounds like the majority of you didn't apply for the first round. So I'm going to go through that checklist for us right here. So some of the documents that we're going to be looking for, I know a lot of you had paid staff, which is wonderful. So it becomes pretty easy what we need on this time around. So first time borrowers need to have their business entity, their name, the year that they were established, legal name, NAICS code. If you don't have your NAICS code, it's a simple Google search, or you can ask anybody in the financial industry and they'll be able to find that for you. We will need to know your average monthly payroll. We can talk a little bit about that. Your number of employees and the ownership of the entity as well. So then we're going to scroll down a little bit further and you're going to see required documentation. So I don't think that this one probably, it doesn't sound like there's an entity with no employees in here. Is that correct? Probably. Sounds like we're probably more of with employees. So we would want to gather your 2019 or 2020 941s for all 4 quarters. They say 2019 or 2020 because it could probably fluctuate depending if you had to lay off employees in 2020 and your loan amount might be a little bit higher in 2019. So that's why they give you the option. We're also going to be collecting your state quarterly wage unemployment tax information. So that's going to be your UC1s. We'll want those for all 4 quarters of the same year. And then we would like some kind of documentation showing that you were in business as of February 15th of 2020. So there's a little bit of a difference between the first-time borrower and the second-time borrower, because if you were a second-time borrower, you received the first round of funding, but now you need to show that you had at least a 25% loss in 1 quarter of 2019 versus the quarter of 2020. Now you don't need to show that loss. If it's under $150,000 a loan, then you don't have to show that loss immediately, but you will need to show it at forgiveness. So that is one of the differences in the documentation that's going to be required the second time. Did I have any questions on anything with the documentation portion? All right, hearing none. Jerrod really wanted me to talk about the bank's process, what that looks like for you guys. So at our bank, we have all of our applications available right online, just where I showed you. You do not have to be a customer of the bank for us to do your PPP loan. I think one of the great things about being a local community bank is that we want to help our communities. So please feel free to share this information with anybody that you needs a little bit of help during this process. And I'll put my contact information in the chat as well. And you can send them directly to me. So we would go right to our website. We would go to the application, whether you're a first-time borrower or a second-time borrower. And then we're going to gather all of the information and we're going to input it into our electronic form. Again, the biggest things that you're going to want to have this time around that are a little bit different than the first time is that NAICS code and the date that your business was established. So that all of that information will be plugged into the electronic form. Then we're going to talk about your average monthly payroll. So typically you would take those 941s, you would add up all of your yearly payroll amounts and you would divide it by 12, and that's going to give you your average monthly. And then you're going to times that by the 2.5, and that's going to give you your loan amount. So that's what you would put into this these fields. And you can see, click here for more information about the payroll app calculations, and that will take you right to another form that will help you through that process. Right back. Ownership information. This is another thing that wasn't on the first round of funding, but we want to know who are the owners of the actual entity. So we do need to get to 100% of that ownership structure. So that will be there. These are going to be some eligibility questions. We won't go through these, but you can see that there are about 10 of them, and your answers will find out if you're eligible or not for the program. And then this is where you're going to drag and drop your documents that we talked about, your 941s and your UC1s and your statement that you were in business as of February 15th of 2020. You're also going to authorize that you did have a loss of 25% or more in one of those quarters in 2019 versus 2020. Again, you do not need to provide proof that you did it if your loan is under $150,000, but you are authorizing and saying that you did have that loss. Maybe Jerrod can go into a little bit more detail about that too. From the time of when you submit your application, it will come to our internal network, and we're going to review the application. So we have a team that's working on validating the documentation that's provided, and also it goes through our underwriting department. The first round, there were loose restrictions, so we did see some fraudulent activity. So the second round has been a little bit more, it's been a little bit more timely on the banks themselves, because we are reviewing all of the documentations, we're underwriting them, we're making sure that these loan amounts are, oh, looks like we got some extras, here we go. These loans amount are correct based on the documentation that you provided. So it is taking probably a little bit longer than the first round. And I think people are a little bit impatient, but we're just trying to do what is right for our customers. So ultimately, those applications do get forgiven as well. All right, Nita, it looks like you raised your hand. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Renita DeHaze. I'm the Treasury Assistant for the conference. And I get questions from treasurers from the churches. Back to the ownership thing. Are you considering the called pastor as the owner or the elected council as the owner, or who are you considering as the owners of a church?
I don't know. Is Jerrod still here? Jerrod, maybe you have more clarity on that question.
That particular issue, I haven't seen anything specific written about. What I would say in general, when we're looking at, I would say, IRS compliance or banking compliance or securities compliance, usually what they're looking for is the person that the buck stops with legally, and to have a link to that kind of person. Given our polity, I would assume that would be more appropriate for a moderator or a treasurer to be listed as that contact than a settled pastor. But obviously, you know, that's gonna vary by church. In this case, I just got back here. It's actually referencing the name of the principal, if I'm not mistaken, as opposed to an owner. And in that case, that would actually, since I'm just now getting to look at this because my internet dropped, the principal would be most appropriately the moderator or maybe the treasurer, in my opinion. Because again, that function is the same function as the person who would run a firm in a professional services capacity, and the person who's responsible for compliance. So probably not your minister unless they're very special, because they likely don't know much about what they're signing.
Jerrod, I would have gone right along with you. I would have probably said treasurer in this case. Yep. And I know that there was another raise of the hand. I believe it was Robert. Robert, did you have a question?
Yes, please, very quickly. What is your experience in round one with churches, particularly what you could call the success rate?
That's an interesting question. I did not have any churches the first time around in my portfolio. I can look at the bank world organization and see how many we have and provide that information to you.
Maybe there could be pointers gathered from that information.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let
Thank
me
you,
look into
Jessica.
that. Absolutely. All right. Did anybody else have any questions before we move on? Paul?
If you've not participated in the first round of PPP as an organization, what are the benchmarks here? What is the information that we really should be keyed in on? Is the first phase over, or if you're this is your first engagement by your party with the program, are you in phase one, or are you just a new entity coming under these round two type of rules and criteria?
Sure. So the first round of funding had closed,
Okay.
and then people are able to apply for forgiveness at this point in time. So the second round of funding has opened up, and within that second round of funding, you could be a first-time borrower or a second-time borrower. And the only really big difference is showing that 25% revenue loss. That's as a requirement. Does that answer your question?
I think specifically the one important point that I'm not sure is clear, and I've read a couple different things about this as it was coming out that people might want to know, is if you're a first-time borrower, in the second round program. I think they're curious, do you have to meet that 25% mark?
You do not. Nope,
Okay.
that's not a
That was
requirement.
my understanding as well. Okay,
Yep.
good.
It's not a requirement. So you don't have to show that revenue loss if you're a first-time borrower. The second round of funding. Great question. Any other questions?
Yes,
All
please.
right.
Are you saying, I'm sorry, just quickly, are you saying that if you're a second round applicant first time, that you do not have to show the 25% payroll? Is it payroll reduction? Is that what you're saying?
It's 25% revenue reduction, but yes,
Revenue
that is what we're
reduction.
saying.
So why did that go away, please?
Because they changed it with the second round. But my understanding from what I read was that they felt not everybody got it the first round. And so if you're getting it, you should have the same, basically the same crack at the money that everybody else who got it in time did if you didn't get it the first round. But if you're going for a second draw, now you need to prove that you had a revenue loss, because frankly, it was a little bit of a feeding frenzy, and there were probably some larger organizations that got this money that quite frankly shouldn't have. And so I think they put that on there to make sure it's actually hitting organizations that had a loss. Does that
So
make
if you're-
sense?
Yes and no. If you're a second round applicant who's applying for the first time,
Yes.
do you or do you not have to show a 25%?
You do
revenue loss?
not.
I see.
It's only if this is your second draw, and you've gotten money before, then you have to show a 25% loss.
And then what goes to the relationship between being forgiven the amount and not having to show a revenue loss? In other words, two folks have come on and said that they were forgiven, and presumably in the first round, they had to show that 25% revenue loss.
Well, they had to show how they use the funds. Not necessarily unless I'm getting confused by the question. The forgiveness is based on the usage of the funds and the ratio of how it's used between payroll and other allowable expenses. It's not based on your revenue loss.
I see.
But
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yep. Great job, Jerrod. Any other questions regarding that?
Looks like Linda has one.
Oh, Linda?
I didn't know how to use the hand, raise the hand thing. What do you consider a reasonable time frame for applying? We would be a first time in the second round.
Okay, perfect. So that's kind of what we're getting into. So it was a great question. So once you submit your application, we immediately email you, let you know that you've gotten the ball rolling by submitting your application. It will come to us into our underwriting department. So it kind of goes into two phases. First is making sure that you have all of the documentation that is needed for the application. So if you are missing a piece, we'll have somebody reach out to you and gather that information. Once we have all of the documentation on file, then we are able to send it to our underwriting department. And that can take it's been taking about a week and a half. I would say if everything is good and we have everything, and once it goes to our underwriting department, then it probably it goes into the SBA portal where we have to enter all of the information. And SBA this time around, instead of giving us an instant approval, it is actually taking 24 to 48 hours for them to approve that loan for us. Once we receive that information, we respond to our customers and let them know that their loan has been approved. They've been issued a loan number. And then from there, we have 10 days to do closing documentation. So I think timing right now, it seems to be getting a little quicker because the first round of funding, when we had first opened up for the second round of funding, it was just a lot of people all at once, and we're a small community bank with limited resources. So it was taking a little bit longer, but now that those have been kind of going through, I'm finding that it's a little bit quicker because it's not as busy right now with requests.
Well, that's part of the question, but the other question is, how long do we anticipate funding might be available if we need to get this process started?
Yeah,
Like,
I think,
if we're a couple of weeks pulling all of our stuff together and getting our application filed, is that reasonable, or is it an ASAP?
the deadline on this one, I believe, is March. Do you have that exact date, Jerrod?
Pulling it up here on a website that I had
Yeah, I
bookmarked. Give me
was
1
too.
second.
Okay.
I want to say it's the end of March.
So let's see. Nope, that doesn't have it.
Let's see. Deadline, March 31st.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I would give yourself at least probably 2 weeks for it to work through the system.
Yep.
Last time we went right up to the deadline and accepting applications.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Yes, Paul.
I think you were starting to ballpark what was the SBA loan portal, or what was the timing with the loan portal as to when a response, an affirmation or otherwise comes back from SBA?
24 to 48 hours is typically their turnaround time right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So after, so we have 2 DocuSigns. So when you submit all of your documentation and it goes to our underwriters for review, and there's no questions about the loan amount or anything like that, we are going to send you a DocuSign document. Basically, this is just saying that you agree to the loan amount and you're ready to move forward to the next step. So you will have to sign the DocuSign document for the application. And then at that time, that's when we put it into the SBA portal. And from there, once we receive that loan number from the SBA, within 24, 48 hours, you will receive in the next 10 days your closing documents. And those are all also electronic too. So all through DocuSign. And then if you have any questions along the way, you can reach out to your relationship banker. If you don't have a relationship with Machais, please, I will put my contact information in the chat. But this is all great information, and our website is available to you whenever you'd like to view it. So I'm going to stop my screen share right now. All right.
So
I know that was, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Nope. No, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, did anybody have any questions on the process for the PPP? No? All right, I'm going to put my contact information in the chat.
Yes, please. I'm
And
sorry.
I disappeared for a little bit, so I don't know if we addressed this, but did you go through what people were asking for about if the grant was available for certain other expenditures? Did you touch on that at all?
I didn't, no.
Okay, so I will touch on that now that you have kind of, everybody has a broad overview, because the answer is yes and no. But now that you understand the program, I think you'll understand why I'm saying that a little better. So it's based on your payroll costs. And that's why I checked in to see who had settled ministry or paid ministry at their site. So you apply and you get the funds based off of those amounts. You need to use it to pay that minister, or in some cases you can pay utilities and other stuff. But what I tell people is, you haven't lowered your minister's salary, you don't actually need to get into that level of detail, because money is, there's a fancy term for this, fungible, which means that once it's in your bank account, you'll show the SBA that you paid your minister and then it gets forgiven. But the effect of that is that you now have money that you didn't pay your minister with. So what you do with that money doesn't matter. All that matters for these purposes is that you get the money, your minister's salary stays the same, and then you essentially have more money in your bank account that, you know, you can do whatever you want with. And so that's why I was saying that, you know, what you do with that extra money is, if you want to fund ministry with that, that's 100% a-okay. But with how the grant works, you wouldn't apply in that way. You get a grant for your payroll expenses, and because of that, you have extra money laying around. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, the Parsons.
Now, you keep talking about the minister's, you're paying your pastor. Payroll expenses.
Mhm.
Now, you have other staff members. Does that factor in?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's any pay. I just use the example of a pastor because for a lot of churches, that's their only payroll expense in Maine.
Okay.
But it does apply for, essentially, when this program was put out, it was seen somewhat as an extension of almost the unemployment office, in that everybody's salaries are continuing to be met. And then there was a little variance, essentially allowing for certain utilities and interest obligations because some people weren't paying people due to being shut down. And so they let them take care of some other obligations with those funds as well. That was the kind of underlying intent, was my understanding. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I'm getting a little off topic there.
Because we have other employees, so we can include them.
Yes.
Thank you.
How much can you apply for?
It's 2.5 months of payroll. Yes, Paul.
Jerrod, could you just attach that 2.5 months of payroll, that criteria to what? To what is the grant request, or?
That's essentially the amount that's going to get calculated. When you pass all your financials to Machais or to whoever, they'll look at that, and then that becomes your grant amount.
I see.
I think Robert has a question.
Yes.
Very quickly, since I just received notification of this, it was either last night or this morning, this meeting, to share the information, Jessica, which you have kindly walked us through, with my own pastor and the committee in question. Do I go to the Machias site for that? What amounts, I think, to a PowerPoint, so that they can read through it themselves to consider whether we want to do this or not. Is that where I go?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And if you have any other questions after he goes through them, I'm more than happy to answer those for you.
Wonderful.
And the other thing, along with giving them the Machais website, this Zoom will be available on the conference website.
Oh, good.
So you can have them watch this while they look at
good.
Machais' website.
Good. And am I correct to say that, because I'm learning as we go along here, that this is basically salary support?
Yes.
That's how it presents.
That's how it presents. But like I said, as I said, money is fungible. And you know, if your revenue has gone down and you pay your minister, you know, people can really think about it however they want. But what you get is based on what your salaries you're paying.
Thank you so much.
Jerrod?
Paul? Yes.
A follow up on that. So would that mean that the qualified amount in a grant could have an alternate measurement of need, which is based on revenue loss instead of the 2.5 5 months of employment costs?
So for the PPP loans, the only criteria for the first draw is your payroll costs.
Okay.
If you didn't have payroll costs, you can't get a PPP loan. There are other programs that were meant to fill those other gaps, like an EIDL loan, but those aren't forgivable. So They come with there's other strings.
Thank you.
Or, well, they weren't fully forgivable, but there's some complexity that I don't think we need to get into there because it's, I don't think it's relevant to what you're asking. You're going to be paying back the majority of it. If you don't have payroll expenses, you're not going to get a grant amount for the EIDL.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Ken.
Yeah, because we didn't apply for the first round, is there a retro for payroll? Can we use going back to last year or the year before and apply for that in this second round?
So
we missed the first round. So is there some way of collecting? Because
are you asking if you can collect both programs?
yeah.
Okay. Actually, that's probably a better question for Jessica.
I think the simple answer is probably no. The first program has closed. There was a deadline to it. So I think this second time is open for application.
But you do get the more lenient application rules of the first round.
Yes, and you are able to use 2019 payroll costs. So if you had, some people had to lay off people in 2020. So if your payroll costs were higher in 2019, you can use 2019 numbers.
And one of the other things I wanted to add, one of the things that prompted this was not just the PPP loans, those are most relevant now, but there were a number of other state and federal grant programs. And I know Lynette ran into trouble with some of those because of the nature of church finances. And we were brainstorming, when we were brainstorming this, that came up. Most of those have closed now. But if you do see any other grants, programs that you're looking to apply for related to disaster recovery, one of the things that I would say is if you get turned down, you have my contact information. Most of the issues that I know Lynette was running into was people asking for documentation that churches don't have, and Lynette not understanding how to follow up with, but can we give you this instead? Because we have that. In the case of the PPP loans, it's really just about your payroll costs. It's pretty straightforward. And you have a banker like Jessica who's walking you through the process. So you have that kind of trusted advisor that can help you figure out what you need, but that's not the case with like the Maine economic grant that was a subset of the massive funding that the PPP loans were a part of, but wasn't part of that program directly.
I think Wayne has a question.
Oh, yep, Wayne.
Hi, I'm Wayne Brockway. I'm the Central Board Chair, or you would probably know it as moderator for South Congregational Church. So I know you can use 2019 or 2020 payroll. In our case, we were lucky enough to find a full-time settled minister after about a 2.5-year break from our pastor emeritus. But of course, what's happened is our 2021 budget for payroll is a substantial increase. But I'm guessing that you have to just use figures that have already been paid out. You can't justify on what's now happening, right?
That's my understanding, Jerrod.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. I mean, I didn't get any PPP loan precisely for that reason because I had a financed, how to keep this simple. I had some purchases that were financed in 2019. So I didn't pay for them, but they led to a tax loss. And because of that, it washed out a bunch of my profit technically. And so I just didn't get it and I couldn't find a way around it. So I think you're probably out of luck there, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks.
Good question though. Robert,
It
I
is a
think I
great
saw
question.
you had did you have a question too, Robert? Nope.
Is that everything? Does anybody have anything else?
I'd just like to thank you for your time. I thought this was a very good presentation.
And so would I. I thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you, Jerrod. It's been very helpful, and we have some work to do now.
I just saying, I was in going through that first loan, I called Machias Savings Bank whenever I had any questions, and they got right back to me. So I would encourage each one of you, if you've got any questions at all, please call Machias Savings Bank for any clarification. And I probably called 3 or 4 times, and they were very helpful each time. So you're not in it alone, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well with them, which is one of the reasons why, I invited Jessica in particular.
So Bethel, Maine and Machias are pretty far apart, Jessica. You'd pick up the phone if the Bethel Church, if we intended to apply?
Of course, of course.
Really?
We have business all over the state of Maine when we're
Okay.
not even in those communities. So happy to help. This is for the whole state. Get us back on
Okay,
our
thank you.
feet.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
This is for Jerrod. Are there any other grants? I know there was a Homeland Security grant at one point. Do you know of any others? For
I don't know
lighting
of
bills, things
any
like
others that are currently available at the state level. Some of them closed out in the end of January, unfortunately. I've been keeping my ear to the ground. And if I hear of anything where now that we've got this set up, I know Lynette and I are going to more actively try to push out information about that, because churches are usually the last people to find out. But I would tell everyone to pay attention as this new round of congressional budget passes, because I suspect there may be some more things potentially here or there. I don't know for certain yet, but it's definitely not out of the kind of the ballpark of reality, that there could be other bits that get added on.
I had a question. I may have misunderstood something. So if we're applying for the second draw, we received the first one. Are the rules different or is it the same? Okay.
So it's just for the second draw, you just need to show that you had a 25% reduction in revenue if you've gotten the loan before.
Okay, thank you.
Wayne?
I had another one. So the loan itself, if you were approved, is actually with SBA, correct? And what other standard loan terms if you get it?
Do you want me to tackle this
Rates
one,
and
Jim?
periods.
Yeah, that would be you.
Okay. So the loan is actually with Machias Savings Bank.
Oh, it is, okay.
So they're giving the approval, and then it's on the bank's books.
Got it.
And basically, if the loan is not forgiven, you have 2 to 5 years to pay that back at an interest rate of 1%.
So very good terms, and also if you have, like I said, settled ministry, they're not generally the folks that they weren't often getting laid off during the pandemic or even now. I know most congregations, probably see it as a justice issue. If they can, they keep somebody going even during that time. I'm sure there have been some congregations that have made some unfortunate hard choices, but I think for most people, it's probably going to be a non-issue, just with what I've seen with retention around the state. It's going to be forgiven. So, and if you know that, if you are facing one of those hard choices and you get the money, the easiest solution is just to keep someone around for another 8 weeks. So,
Yeah. We have a 99% forgiveness rate right now. So,
yeah.
Oh, good.
Greg?
Robert?
Oh, sorry, Robert, go ahead.
Quickly, you anticipated my question, Jessica. Thank you. My second question was to Jerrod, which is fungible means fungible, right?
I mean, yes. Well, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
What I'm asking is, I'm trying to get the settled pastor and a committee for the church interested in a feasibility study for a teen homeless project.
Yeah,
And
so
it could be written that, for example, some part of his salary is covered by superintending this 12-month feasibility study, just to
I
give you
think
enough detail.
you're overthinking this.
Okay.
Because it's going to be based on the salary that he's had. You're going to get that amount. Assuming that his salary or her salary doesn't go down, it's going to be automatically forgiven. And so you just get that extra money. There's no need to write in what
Good.
you're planning on using it for. That's not even part of the process.
Thank you very much.
We got Greg, who's been waiting patiently.
Thanks. If you submit the application on time and you meet the criteria, is funding guaranteed?
That'd be more of a Jessica question.
I want to say yes, but it does go to the SBA, and there's a possibility that you could be denied. I've had people that wouldn't probably be in this situation, but people that had student loan debt that ended up going to not bankruptcy, but going bad, and they were denied for the SBA. So if you have any federal loans that are delinquent, you will be denied for that. Date of establishment, that's another thing that's been denying applications. The second round, again, it's a lot different than the first round. The first round, I think that they were just trying to get money out as quickly as possible. And again, second round, you know, they're finding that they had a lot of fraud the first round, so they're really doing their due diligence this time.
So that's actually an important point, and this isn't relevant actually for federal taxes. They're the one delinquent federal taxes actually don't trigger. That's one exception, but who the principal is on the application, didn't think to mention that, but you know, you don't need the details of somebody's life, but you know, we are in a pandemic, and I know especially some business owners have had trouble keeping business up. So if your treasurer or the person you're thinking of doing it is, you know, you might want to just make sure that they know that that's a reason for denial, and you know, they don't need to go into detail with you, but they do need to know that if, you know, they have anything other than overdue taxes with the federal government, you don't want them as the principal on the application. And it's time to find somebody else on the board.
I was thinking more from an availability of funding.
Yeah, so I know with the first one, there technically was an amount of money that could run out. There is an appropriated amount for this. So as far as I know, there's the possibility that the money could run out, but I know that I haven't heard anything about it coming close. And I know there was talk about extensions immediately or additional appropriations as before when that was potentially going to happen. So I would say just get your application in, and if for some reason they do run out of money, it might not be the end of it, but I also, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen in this case.
Okay, thank you.
And then somebody else had their hand up before.
Well, I did, but I think I know the answer. I was wondering, they were talking about the date of establishment of the business, and I wondered if that was a date of incorporation or the founding of the church.
If you have a date of incorporation, I think that that's probably going to be the easiest thing for them to cross-reference, especially because then you get into the tricky issue with some of the older churches in the state that, you know, founding was a bunch of people organized pre the US. They've just continued to exist ever since. That's something that actually came up with one of, you know, Lynette's churches, is they you know, they've just been continuously operating for hundreds of years, and they didn't have a date of incorporation other than, what was written in their old history books.
Got it.
So just, if you've got an incorporation date, use
Yep.
that. If you don't, you can work around it. I think in that case, that's banking due diligence. And so it's, you want to be truthful, but also you can have a conversation about, well, this is the records that we have, and this is the date where we have, and just disclose that. As long as you disclose stuff and are upfront, it doesn't seem like a insurmountable issue.
Yeah. And I think what we're looking for is that you were in business before February 15th.
Yeah.
Of 2020.
Philip?
That's February 15th, 2021, not 19 or 18 or 17, 21, right?
February 15th of 2020.
Sorry,
Yep.
2020.
Yeah.
But not 1800.
No.
Yes. Yeah, most of a little bit of history for Jessica. Most of the congregations that are in this are the successor organizations of the churches of what were called churches of the standing order, which were the churches that were set up when English settlers came over, and you were required to go to church because everybody did, and so there was one in each community, and so we have. Not so much in Maine because we got settled a little bit later, but if you get a little farther down in South, 1500, 1600 incorporation dates are not uncommon.
So my question, Jerrod, and I think you've gone a long way in answering it, is that it appears that you have confidence that there will be adequate funding to fund those approved requests for the loan.
Yeah, and I guess what I would say is I have not heard of anyone not having confidence, nor have I seen any articles about it. I know there was in the first round, and I haven't seen anything about that in this particular funding round.
And is there any experience or expectation that an applicant would get a partial approval? In other words, something saying we're not going to fund you for 2.5 times your monthly compensation record, but maybe we'll give you $10,000.
I haven't heard of that once, and I would say that the other thing too with churches is this probably seems like a lot of money, and in some cases it is, but they were for some of these loans that they were going out around this time, they don't even require personal guarantees for under $150,000, and there's minimal due diligence on forgiveness below that as well. So this makes a big difference to you, but something to remember that anybody here, as far as their loan amounts, is a very small fish compared to what is going on elsewhere. So I wouldn't anticipate that. Was that Robert? Did you have something, or were you just moving your hand? Okay, you're good. Just moving your hand.
I just want to say thank you before I leave for a very informative meeting. It's much appreciated.
Glad we could help.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. You all stay safe and stay well.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica and Jerrod.
Of course.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Jerrod.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Good luck with your outside venue.
Thank you.
All right.
That went really well.
You did a great job.
Thank you. You did as well. I had a feeling you would, though, which is again why I asked you. So yeah, just lots of questions, and I think with folks here, people just it's a lot of information to take in and people are already overloaded. So just being able to get those questions answered makes people feel a lot more comfortable with reaching out. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and I would say that, this went really well. But I know Lynette likes doing these kind of things. And she's on the board this year. So if you have if more programs come out or you have any ideas for other presentations related to banking that kind of niche with churches, just let me know and we can always pitch it or see if it works. So.
All right. Sounds awesome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.